Randy, would you identify yourself?
I'm Randy Vance. I'm joining with Zoom.
Michael McFarland representing Mr. Hubble. Mr. Hubble, please introduce yourself. Matthew Hubble. And I just discovered I will need a sidebar with possible conflict of interest, Your Honor.
Did you say your name was Eric?
Matthew.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you from there. What, Matthew?
Hubble.
H-U-B-B-L-E?
E-L-L.
Sorry.
H-U-B-B-E-L-L.
Thank you.
Like the telescope.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna do mock for Mother Jessica Vance. She should be on Zoom.
We have Jessica Vance on Zoom.
Yes, Jessica Vance.
Thank you, welcome.
I'm Lee Jamison Heiss. I represent Mr. Smith, who is the father of Carter. Mr. Smith, if you're online, would you please identify yourself?
I am here, correct?
What is your name?
My name is Benjamin Smith.
Okay, thank you.
I don't need a sidebar anymore, Your Honor, you need to put disclosure on the record.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, I have a petition of yourself.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I'd like to ask the same question of Mr. Vance.
Have you also represented Mr. Vance in the past? Oh, I see.
That's what he said he did.
Gotcha. Okay,
Simple question.
sure. Deputy, introduce for Mr. Randy Vance, please.
You heard what Mr. McFarland said, that at some point in the past, he represented you.
Yes,
Do you have any objection to him continuing to represent another respondent in this case other than you?
no, I don't.
That's all.
All right, very good. Counselors, could you verify that your clients have all received a copy of the amended petition that is under review by the court today?
Your Honor, my client and I have not, as he is not named in that petition, it's as a respondent. So I don't think I have it, and I don't think he has it.
Right.
Oh, I do have it, sorry, but he's not a party in that. The kid is, but he's not a respondent.
I really don't know the answer, Your Honor. I got it apparently at 4:30 yesterday afternoon, but I didn't actually see it until I came to court this morning. So I'll have to ask Mr. Vance.
Go ahead.
Sir, have you got a copy of the most recent petition, which would have come out yesterday afternoon?
No, sir, I have not.
Okay.
Your Honor, my client was provided that from me this morning. I don't know if he was served yesterday, but he does have ADD, ADHD, bipolar. He is requesting that things be read to him, so he'll be scheduling an appointment for me to read that. My understanding, we'll be amending it on the record today, so we don't have to serve yet another petition. And the goal will be changed for two parents from termination to reunification.
Pretty big amendment to just do on the record, Ms. Thomas, especially if the other parents haven't been served yet. Do you want to just do a formal amendment and then serve everyone? What are your thoughts?
I can do that, Your Honor. I believe, given, Your Honor, this has just been a very complicated case and trying to figure out where children are to keep them safe, what the facts of the case are. I have no problem amending it to reflect the conversations that we had today regarding the relief requested as relates to Mr. Hubble and Ms. Vance. I don't know if there's any objection to another 7-day adjournment to allow that to happen. I do apologize for the late filing on my part. So if that's the instruction of the court, I'm happy to do that.
I mean, I can accept it on the record, but I think it would also be best to do the actual written amendment before all of the parties are served anyway. Okay. So for purposes of an adjournment, I would have to ask you to go to Monday, July 29th. So it would be be about 11 days, 11 or 12 days, counting the weekends. Gentlemen, I'm happy to go through the rest of the questions that I typically would for purposes of prelim, which is the Native American heritage, and of course, if anything else is any other cases concern the children and the reading of the petition. If you'd like to tackle any of those questions today, or we can table them all for the 29th. What's your preference, Mr. Brooks?
I now have time. I think the court was advised initially that I had a 10 o'clock start date on a 2-day trial. It's now been adjourned over to 1:30 this afternoon. So I am at your disposal.
Well, considering that your client has not received a copy of the petition, I guess what I'm asking is, do we want to do any pieces of the prelim today, or should we just move the whole thing?
It would probably make more sense to my client and the others to do it all at once.
It's nice because then we don't have to try to remember what we did, but
Right.
I'm open to it.
I agree. For the record, my client has no Indian heritage in this family.
Did you ask that question of your client, Mr. Brooks?
I did not. Mr. Vance, do you have any Indian heritage, Native American heritage in your family?
Not that I know of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I spoke with Ms. Vance with regards to Native American heritage, and she denied any.
Mr. Smith denies Native American heritage and has not been served with the petition, so that an adjournment of the prelim would be in his best interest.
All right. Are you all available on Monday, July 29th? At this point, I have, if we do 10 a.m. or 1:30?
I'm available either.
I'm available at 1:30.
Gentlemen?
Anytime.
It's fine.
1:30 is fine if that works for everyone.
Okay, so 1:30 then on July 29th. Are there any issues that need to be addressed in the meantime? Are the parties working on visitation and maybe some initial services or whatever else can be done to support the family between now and the 29th?
Your Honor, this amended petition adds in 2 children. At the time the initial petition was filed, they were not found in the state of Michigan. So it was amended to add 2 children. And we would still, right now they are currently in a safety plan, and I don't know that we have a reason to believe that that safety plan would be jeopardized or compromised in the next 11 days. But there is a proposed relative placement through the department in Mackinac County for the 2 boys. It's my understanding that both of their parents are not necessarily objecting to that placement. The department is asking that parenting time continue to be suspended pending a therapist recommendation, just given the nature of the allegations. We just want to ensure that however parenting time is presented moving forward, it does protect the children and allow the family some services and to understand how to interact moving forward.
Which, well, it looks like Chandler, I apologize for using the full name of the child, but it does look like your client has one of the children that's been concerned by the amendment, Mr. Brooks, is that right?
My client is only the parent of one of these children who is making allegations against my client. Sort of.
Right? Your position, well, let me go back to Ms. Thomas for a moment. So are you asking for a ruling on the removal request for the 2 children that have been added to the petition? Or are you satisfied that the safety plan is a lesser restrictive situation until we come back on the 29th?
Your Honor, we would ask for a ruling on the removal request, and especially given the nature of the case, we would like to start services as soon as possible. And if there's a way so that the department can coordinate with Mackinac County and get those referrals in for therapy and other treatment that's necessary, that would be most ideal.
All right, you represent Mr. Hubble?
I
Mr.
do.
Brooks? Oh, no, I'm sorry.
My client's agreeable with placement up in Mackinac. And I guess we also have to add the component of parenting time, of course, according to here.
Okay, all right, hang on a minute. Okay. Okay, so we can't adjourn everything, but let's do what we can do today. So we know that the petition needs to be amended and served. But that's to simply change the request for relief. Is that right, Ms. Thomas?
Correct, Your Honor.
It also releases my client as a respondent.
This one did already, the amended petition did, but the second one will reflect the new relief requested as relates to Jessica Vance and Matthew Hubble.
Let me just ask some of the other questions. Mr. Brooks, do you know, does your client have any idea if there are other cases concerning any child, other, like a guardianship, custody case, or anything else outstanding?
Did you hear the question, sir?
Yes, and no, there is not.
Mr. McFarland,
Question was, Your Honor?
are there any other cases concerning the children
Yes.
of your client?
Yes, there is a parenting time custody support. So support would incorporate all those, Your Honor. You, Lenawee County, sir? Yep. Lenawee County, right?
All right. Your client obviously has the right to have the probable cause showing made as it relates to the removal request, but you also have the right to waive that if you like, as well as the right to have the court read the petition onto the record.
He does wish to have it read, but because there is an amended petition, he'd like to receive that. He's going to meet with me, Your Honor. I guess when we return, I'll let the court know. I don't anticipate that we'll need to read that after I go over it with him.
Well, I believe 2 of the children that were added to this petition are your client's children, and the department is asking for removal. So he'll have to make a decision as to whether or not he wants to waive the probable cause finding on that, or if there should be a presentation of evidence on it.
Let me just step out in the hall briefly, Your Honor.
Sure. Okay, let's go to you in the meantime. Ms. Dumont?
Your Honor, I believe Ms. Vance is currently involved in a open CPS case with the department involving some of the children named in the petition, and she is working on services with that. When I spoke with her yesterday with regards to placement with her sister Samantha in Mackinac County, she had no objection to that. And I also don't believe at this point we would want the petition read. If we do get that adjournment, I will go over that with her. And I believe with the change from termination to reunification, we will most likely be entering a no contest plea.
All right, thank you for that update. I see there's a DM and a DS case filed that appear to concern at least some of the children of your client. Do you know, are there any other cases other than these 2 that have been noted with the original petition?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right, so does she wish to waive the probable cause finding as it relates to the request for removal today?
Yes, Your Honor, I believe so. With my conversation about placement with her sister, yes.
So your client, Ms. Heiss,
Yes,
is not named as a respondent in the petition I'm looking at.
and there is a DS case. He petitioned yesterday for a custody change in the Lenawee Circuit Court, 3rd floor, accepted his paperwork. He does not have a hearing date for that yet.
Thank you for that update. Is that child residing with him at this time?
Newly, since being placed in this case with his father, and he's doing well. That child's also on probation with this court, and so there is extra eyes on him, and we anticipate that child will be under jurisdiction of the court, but that this father, who is a placement, will not be a respondent.
Great. I don't know if you have access to those because they're confidential typically. So for purposes of your confidential case inventory, I don't know that that would have been immediately apparent to you, which is interesting because in a delinquency case, the court also has placement authority. So it may be beneficial to reach out to the probation officer in that case to make sure that both cases are in alignment on placement. I'm not sure which one would, because both of them have superseding jurisdiction over any custody case. Okay. It would just be best if they were in alignment for our purposes moving forward. Okay.
I informally talked with Ms. Sarabia about Carter's case and it's anticipated that case should be closing out maybe within a day, but also that this placement is beneficial to the child, but that was an informal conversation.
Well, thank you. I mean, if he's at the end of his benefit through the probation department, then I'm not worried about it.
Correct. So his end date was 7/11, but as soon as I pay off that 115, he will be off, they said.
Oh, good. Tell him I said good job.
Yeah, I will. Thank you.
All right,
I have an answer for the court, Your Honor.
I'm ready.
My client is waiving his right to removal hearing today.
So it's the probable cause determination.
I'm sorry, probable cause determination, yes.
That's totally all right. I just want to make sure I understand his position. And you don't want me to go through the petition with him on the record? You're gonna do that later? Is that right?
We will be doing that at my office, Your Honor, and he's going to receive a new amended petition, so we'll do everything at one time.
All right, so why don't we just do this? Ms. Thomas, would you like to just simply make the argument under the court rule on removal for the record?
Yes, Your Honor, I can do that. Your Honor, as relates to I believe that this has already been determined as relates to the 3 children that were removed from the respondent parents' care and custody. But as it relates to the 2 additional children that have been added to the petition, we believe that the custody with the children with either of the named respondent parents presents a substantial risk of harm to their physical health or mental well-being, considering that there are disclosures of sexual abuse and indications that the 2 other non-offending parents either knew or should have known, given their relationship with the offending parent, and did not take the proper steps to sufficiently safeguard the children for the years of abuse that they have disclosed, or at least one child has disclosed so far. This, as relates to, there's no other provision or service or arrangement except for removal to reasonably or adequately safeguard the children. This family has been subject of numerous CPS complaints. There have been several efforts throughout the years to ensure adequate and proper parenting, supervision, and safety for these children. We have already done a safety plan with the 2 boys that were added for this petition. And we are, while that may be adequate for the time being, it is my understanding that they are with maternal grandparents that do not believe the allegations and may not support a safe, healthy environment for those children to work through any of the trauma they may have experienced in the care of their parents. We do believe that continuing their residence in the home with either of their parent at this time would be contrary to their welfare, and that is, of course, given the allegations in the petition. And they do technically constitute aggravating circumstances. And so with the, consistent with those circumstances, reasonable efforts are, while not required, they also have been made. There have been attempts to work with the children in getting the CAC interviews with law enforcement and other services, such as the 2 girls are already scheduled to meet with Mr. Mike Mueller today. And for the boys, again, those reasonable efforts were included in the safety planning of them. The conditions of the children of child custody away from the parents are adequate to safeguard the children's health and welfare, as the parent or the relative placements have been vetted through the department's investigation process. At this time, the 2 girls who were placed with relatives, they are placed with the Department for Care and Custody. We are also asking that the 2 boys that were added today also be placed with the Department for Care and Custody, allowing the department to control placement as it is necessary to comply and continue to comply with policy. Right now, with the boys, they would be with a relative placement. It is my understanding that the girls' placement is no longer appropriate, and we are looking to move them within the next day to a licensed foster care home, which is still local and would allow the parents an opportunity to maintain contact as relates to at least one of them. Provided that a therapist does recommend that parenting time, but I don't know that we'll have an answer in the next 11 days. So we are just asking the court to also make those findings that it is contrary to the welfare for the children to be in the parents' care and custody at this time. And foster care is the least restrictive environment for their safety.
Any response, comments, arguments, or objections? Mr. Brooks?
My client lives in Indiana. I'm well aware of the fact that this court's jurisdiction ends at the county line, state line. And I don't anticipate you're going to allow these kids to go to my client because of that.
No comment.
Your Honor, I do believe Ms. Vance would prefer placement of the girls outside of her, with her sister Alicia. She's indicated concern about drug use while they're in the care and custody of her sister. So I believe she would probably agree with removing them. And if she can't have them, that they go someplace that they're safer.
Ms. Heisey?
We do not object to the findings, to the arguments made by the state's attorney.
Very good. I'm going to adopt them and take judicial notice of the facts and argument as articulated by Ms. Thomas. You've done a nice job. I'm not going to muddy the record as a result of that, but I do need to know from our guardian ad litem if she agrees.
I do agree, Your Honor. I believe that what Ms. Thomas indicated is in the best interest of all of the children.
Right, so I am ordering the removal of the children indicated under D and E on the JC04B, CG, and CH, effective immediately. The continued removal of the prior 3 children will also remain in full force and effect pending the court reconvening. I have reviewed the petition. I am aware of the allegations and the need for interventions and supports for the children right away. So I will also agree in order that a professional be consulted as it relates to parenting time and ask the department to make referrals right away to get the counseling and any other supports necessary for the children in place pending our next hearing. And I'll look forward to hearing about those as well as whoever that referral is made to. So Ms. Freeze or whoever's going to be doing that referral, please make sure you get that done either today or tomorrow so that when we come back, you can let us know who. You might even want to just circulate a copy of that referral for the counseling assessment to all of the attorneys on the court prior to our next hearing. So we know that that's underway.
Your Honor.
Yes.
The 2 girls already have an appointment set up with Mike Fuller today.
Could you give us your name for the record?
Caitlin Young.
Thank you.
So those referrals are already completed with Mike Fuller.
Great.
For the girls.
Is that the person who's also going to be recommending on parenting time, or is that just for individual counseling?
I will make sure it's for both.
Okay. And if he's not comfortable making that recommendation, then, just let us know who else you've made the referral to for that purpose.
Your Honor, if I, just for the record and for everyone's knowledge, the department is actively working on completing the CTEC referrals as well for all of the children today.
Thank you.
Could I ask if those reports are done prior to us coming back to court, if all counsel could be served?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, anything else, ladies and gentlemen, before we come back and resume on the 29th at 1:30?
I have a question, Your Honor.
Sure, what is it?
Can I ask for the court order for the support to stop? Because right now I'm still paying support and that would really help with taking care of him.
So that has to be done in the other case. Once they have that set for hearing, you can take it up. I'm not sure if that's going to be reassigned to me or what judge is going to be hearing that. But the only other thing that you could do possibly is do another request to suspend that pending your hearing. But I can't do that for you on the record today. We're here on the abuse and neglect case only, not on the child custody and support case.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Smith, for that question. All right, so all other orders will remain in full force and effect, as I've already articulated, and we'll reconvene on the 29th at 1:30. Good luck to everyone, and thank you for your work on this case. We'll talk with you on I would appear we're on record for our first initial disposition hearing. May I have the names of our participants, please?
Good morning, Nicole Underwood, lawyer guardian ad litem for the minor children.
Good morning, Your Honor. Anastasia Thomas, counsel for the department. Ms. Young.
I'm Young, Department of Health and Human Services.
Michael McFarland, representing the remaining filer. Please introduce yourself. Kathy Hubble.
Thank you. And it's a regular review. I'm sorry, not an initial. I'm taking this case back over from Judge Costello. So I'll look forward to the updates. I do also want to put on record that the attorneys for the parents and the guardian ad litem let me know that they were going to be asking for some extra time to review the court documents and potentially reserve objections to that, given that it was a little bit late, which is understandable given the holidays. So Ms. Thomas, I did let them know that I would leave open the time frame to address any objections in the next few months in case we need to talk about it at the next review. Do you have any objection to that?
No, Your Honor, I think that's absolutely appropriate. And I would even understand an adjournment at this point, but I know that with the court docket, it might be more feasible to do a review today and then keep that report open for the next review period.
Did you want to address that, Mr. Grounds?
We do not wish to have an adjournment. We think there's some issues that we'd like to have addressed so we can have forward progress on this. So.
All right. And Ms. Dumont?
We would agree, Your Honor. There's a few things my client would like me to bring up.
Very good. All right, off we go then. Let's start with the report from Ms. Underwood.
Yes, Your Honor, I was able to meet in this reporting period virtually with all of the children. The 3 boys are all with a relative placement, and I believe it's an EP. If not, it's pretty close to it. They were very excited to show me their rooms. They've been switched around a little bit because before there were only 2 of the boys that were living there, and over the last reporting period, minor child CS, I believe that's right, was moved from his dad to this relative caregiver. So now all 3 boys are together, but the rooms got moved around. So they were excited to show me all of the things that they have been hanging up in there, and about 1,000 rubber ducks that they've been collecting that they're putting all over the place. And so it's good that we have that rapport where they're excited to show me all the things they're doing. The oldest boy is the one that moved recently. He seems to be adjusting very well. He's happy where he's at. His needs are being met. I believe all 3 of them are in counseling up there. They're getting the dental work that they desperately needed. And I believe that the oldest child who has recently moved over up there is getting his IEP done today, which is great. He does have some diagnoses that would require some services. They all are happy with where they are. They do though desire to have contact of some sort with their parents. They were all pretty vocal about that, I will say. I also did meet with the 2 girls in the case. I'm not certain whether KV is part of this particular report, as her father's rights have already been terminated, and Miss Vance is her stepmom. However, I did talk with her. She's doing well. She's in dance. She's getting ready to do soccer. She's doing driver's training. She's excelling in school. She's doing very well. Her needs are being met, and she wants to continue where she's being placed at with the foster home. The youngest daughter, CG, seems to be struggling some in school and with some medical issues. However, her needs are being met where she's at. She's happy where she's at, and her placement is working very hard to ensure that all of her needs are being addressed and met appropriately. They're all in the least restrictive environments, and I would recommend they continue to be placed where they currently are.
Thank you. Testimony today, Ms. Thomas?
And I'll call Ms. Vance at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. You might try getting a little closer to your microphone. It's really hard to hear you.
Hi, Ms. Vance. First, did you have an opportunity to review the court report that was submitted yesterday?
A little bit, yes.
Okay. And generally, the report indicates that you have been pretty compliant with your case service plan. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. It looks like you were on a waiting list and then had to do an intake with ACPC.
Oh, hang on 1 second. I'm sorry. Hang on. We've been having some technical difficulties with our recording device, and I think it might be acting up. I guess just like just went dead. Just went black. All right. Okay. Sorry. We're gonna have to take a brief recess. our computer in the courtroom has basically just gone dead. So thank you for your patience. We're on record for what's been documented as the second review, as well as the permanency planning hearing. May I have the names of our participants, please?
Good morning, Your Honor. Nicole Underwood, lawyer guardian ad litem for the minor children.
Ms. Saja Thomas, counsel for the department. Ms. Young.
Caitlin Young, Department of Health and Human Services.
Michael McFarland, representing father. Please introduce Matthew Hubble.
Karen Dumont for Jessica Vance. I believe she should be on too.
Yes, Ms. Vance, would you unmute and introduce yourself,
Jessica
please?
Vance.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Underwood, whenever you're ready.
Your Honor, I believe we started this hearing on the 9th, and I did provide my LGL report. Would you like me to?
If you could, yeah, just give us a couple comments.
I was able to meet with all of the children virtually during this reporting period. The 3 boys that are living up north were all very excited to show me their bedrooms and all of the things they got for Christmas and how they had hung them up and displayed them. I think the youngest boy spent about 15 minutes showing me all the rubber ducks he has acquired over the last 60 days or so. So they've really come out of their shells. They are doing well in school. I believe the day before the last hearing, or the day after the last hearing, that one of the minor children was going to be getting evaluated for his IEP. So hopefully that has since been done, and any services that he may need for schooling will be in place. The 2 girls that are in a foster placement are also doing well. Generally, the youngest daughter is struggling in school with behaviors, which everyone is working together to address and ensure that the supports that are needed are in place. And overall, all of the children's needs are being met in the placements that they're in, and the placements that they are in are the least restrictive and in their best interest.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you. And if Ms. Young can be sworn in, please. Ms. Young, at the last hearing, the court ordered several tasks to be completed for today's hearing. So I think first I would like to go through those to see if there's any updates on that regard. Were you able to consult with the children's therapist and secure recommendations for parenting time?
I arranged a meeting. They were not available until the 5th of February. So we're looking at that date to try to meet with the parents, kind of go over some things. They did receive history kind of on the case because they did request some information just to kind of get some background history with their work with the kids because they had some questions in regards to that. So I discussed that with them briefly by email. But we are planning to meet on the 5th once we get confirmation on a time that everybody's available.
Okay. And then were the referrals for the CTAC for the children up north completed?
I have submitted that and I'm waiting on confirmation from our behavioral analyst to verify that that has been approved. She denied the initial request, so I had to redo the assessments yet again. So I did get those sent out. I'm waiting for that confirmation so that way I can get the date of when that evaluations will take place. And it would be with Easter Seals, so that's who we're referring through. That's who services the Upper Peninsula out of, I think, the Southfield office, I believe.
And the referrals made for professional supervised virtual parenting time for Mr. Hubble and Miss Vance?
Yes, it has. Yes. Ms. Edwards is going to be reaching out to all parties to make those arrangements for the rest of the visits moving forward.
Okay. And do the parents have Miss Edwards' contact information so they know to answer that call?
I have not given that to them yet. We just made those arrangements Friday, so I'm working on getting all of that information. I know I had mentioned that during the parenting time that there would be a facilitator moving forward that would be taking over and she'd be reaching out. So they were aware that somebody was going to be reaching out. I just haven't provided the phone number and I can give that to them. It's not a problem.
Okay. And then have the referrals for Mr. Hubble and Miss Vance been made for their psychological evaluations?
Yes, I have done that. That would be through Dr. Douglas Parks. Again, he's going to be reaching out to me to let me know of when the day will take place and where it will take place. In the past, he's come down here to Lenawee to conduct the assessment, so I'm just waiting for confirmation if that's going to be the case. So if we need to permit guests assistance to get to his office up in Wayne County.
Okay. And since our last hearing, has there been any parenting time?
We were able to do one parenting time last week. My supervisor and I facilitated that via Zoom. There was a request to not have KV a part of that part of the visitation. We did allow her to say hello, and she was supposed to exit the parenting time, but she pretty much refused. So I had to call placement directly from my personal phone to say, hey, she needs to exit this parenting time, because it was supposed to be for the 4 kids. We did allow her to at least say hello. I explained to her, you know, this is the parenting time for these parents. We're going to set up a separate time for you to be able to meet with your siblings, and we can have you meet with your stepmom separately, you know, in future visits. But we did a joint visit with Ms. Vance and Mr. Hubble for that one parenting time, and then moving forward, we were going to split them up. It was just the only time slot that everybody was available at for this last week.
How did that parenting time go?
I think overall it went pretty well. It's very emotional. Like I said, KV, she just would not exit the parenting time, so it was just kind of causing a little bit of disruption. But overall, I think things went fairly well. There was a lot of tears, a lot of, you know, kind of talking about how things are going, how school's going, talking about Christmas. So there was a lot of positives in there. Everybody was engaging throughout the entire visit. And as Ms. Underwood had reported, you know, they were very excited to show off some of their new things, especially like the duck collection, and, you know, all these other items that they've accumulated since being at placement.
All right, thank you. And our last order also made this a permanency planning hearing in conjunction with a review hearing. As it relates to your report that was submitted for the hearing scheduled at the beginning of the month, are there any updates or modifications other than the ones we just discussed that need to be made to it?
One of the updates, I know Ms. Underwood kind of touched base a little bit on it. CH female, the minor child that's placed here in Monroe County, she's struggling a little bit behaviorally in school. She was suspended for about a week and a half because of behaviors where she was targeting another youth. She had written a note that was very racist in content, kind of attacking her race, some very inappropriate things that were being looked up on her school computer that's utilized strictly at school. And those behaviors kind of escalated. She tried to confront the girl the next day. That particular girl, they got in an argument in the classroom, and she had hit the girl upside the head with her Chromebook and was suspended. So I'm waiting to hear from the school to see if there's going to be charges filed, because she did injure the youth. So we're just kind of waiting to hear that. We're supposed to have a meeting this week, potentially with the school. So I'm trying to kind of make those arrangements to figure out what is going to be a part of that meeting. So once I have confirmation of all of that, I will get all of that information sent to the parents so they can participate as well. So we're dealing with that. The other issue too with the same youth, she's really struggling, especially morning times, getting out of bed, getting to school. She's refusing to get up. And there's just a lot of truant behaviors where she just is just not wanting to do it. We thought initially that it might be a big medication issue. The doctor's been trying to look at kind of adjusting medication so she's not as tired come morning time. But any of the adjustments that's been made is not helping with that. And when placement spoke to her, she had indicated, you know, I was doing online school, like it was always normal for her to wake up later in the day and non-complete her coursework. So this is just like a continued behavioral thing where she's essentially refusing to follow, you know, the program as far as like the school requirements and being there by a certain time. So it's an ongoing issue. We're working with the school, working with placement, working with her. We are working on trying to get wraparound in place. We had referred back in October They did not set anything up. We had sent all the signatures. Mr. Hubble had signed all the documentation. We sent that back. They confirmed they received it, but never started anything. So when I followed up and finally got a hold of someone, they just recently set a time and they've already canceled for this week. So it's that ongoing issue that we're dealing with them. Because I just found out this morning that they canceled. So I'm just waiting to hear back what the reasoning was and when they're going to reschedule. So we're trying to get some more CMH services in place, potentially switching therapists over to someone more local that's going to be able to provide services consistently, because they haven't had therapy in several weeks because there's been ongoing cancellations through the Parkside therapist as well. So it's been an ongoing battle with some of these providers.
Thank you for that. And then to clarify, our current judge is just kind of getting caught up here. The issues with the youngest child in Monroe, have those school issues been ongoing since the beginning of the school year, or have they progressively worsened?
From my understanding, it has been an ongoing issue since this altercation that occurred at the school. More and more kids have come forward with allegations of her bullying them. There's been a lot of concerns with that we were not aware of. Like I said, the kids didn't start coming forward until she became physically aggressive towards this other youth. You know, when placement tried to talk to her, she didn't get, oh, well, this is how my family acts and this is how they respond to things. And it's like, okay, well, we're not necessarily seeing that with everybody. These are things that like only you specifically are doing. So we need to figure out like what is going on, what's kind of the root of some of these behaviors and how can we help her kind of moving forward, because these are a significant issue. It's become an issue with race in the school. It's becoming an issue with behaviors. She's physically aggressive towards some of the other youth, and it could potentially lead into something that's a delinquency case. So hopefully, you know, we can, moving forward, we can try to prevent that.
And the other children, how are they doing in school?
Everybody else seems to be doing very well. I know KV, she's kind of on a separate track, but she's been doing very well in school. You know, she's basically a straight A student. She thrives in the school setting, wants to be a part of every activity that she possibly can. Obviously, with all the youth in the home, you're limited to how much activity you can possibly be a part of, because everybody wants to be a part of different things in that home, including the other youth. The boys seem to be doing very well. It's my understanding that sometimes there are some conflicts between the two older boys. They don't show it as much to the courtesy worker, but she did explain that she does see some possible conflict between them. They don't express any, but she kind of sees some of their behaviors and how they respond to each other. I do want to note too, so obviously, you know, there's a lot more snow up in their area. They're in the Upper Peninsula. The boys, you know, they received gifts. I drove the gifts up to the UP, met the courtesy worker because one of the gifts was not shippable. So for CS, he had a giant bike, and I think he rode it one time and he's already broken it. So, you know, they've been able to get outside, do a lot of stuff. They're kind of in a very rural area. There's not a whole lot out there. And so we're trying to figure out kind of how to help fix that solution and solve that issue. But overall, I mean, they've really enjoyed being up there. They're with family. They do very well. They've got started collection, as Ms. Underwood said, of little rubber ducks, some other, you know, mechanic type things that mom and dad had sent up there for them, and some different signs for their rooms, that kind of stuff. So they, you know, they're doing very well. They're doing pretty well in school. I know CS, previously we had some issues in school where he didn't want to be there. There was some conflict, you know, with his dad, some emotional stuff. But since he's moved to this smaller school setting, he's really thrived and opened up a lot more. And same thing for the other two boys. They've been doing really well. They're very comfortable with their aunt and uncle and their cousins. And, you know, they've been able to maintain relationships. We are working on trying to get some more sibling visits set up through Zoom. And when we're able to, we'll try to do some face-to-face when we're able to with the distance. Just kind of makes it challenging, but we are working on trying to manage some of that with all of the distance and stuff in that manner.
And as it relates to the parents' level of compliance with the benefit from their case service plans to the best of their extent, given the issues with the referrals, how would you summarize their participation?
I would say, they're overall being very compliant. They maintain good communication. I guess our main concern is we're trying to figure out what Ms. Vance's plan is going to be, if she's going to be planning to stay with Mr. Vance, or is she going to be coming back here to Michigan, kind of what that plan is going to look like, because that kind of is going to be, one of the issues and barriers potentially for reunification. So, with obviously the allegations and the concerns with Mr. Vance, with the alleged abuse, we want to make sure that the children are safeguarded, and if she is planning to remain with him, what is that going to look like for the children as far as permanency? And overall, Mr. Hubble, he's been compliant with his case service plan. He's working with MRS to try to get into some additional services with them. From my understanding and speaking with the worker, he was going to start a work program through Goodwill, kind of start there, kind of see how that transpires, and kind of go from there. He's willing to work. He is on disability, but he's willing to work. He works hard. It was my understanding too, he's also in the process of securing different housing. Because currently he's in one of Mr. Vance's rentals. So he's looking for a different residence. So he was trying to secure that. Once he has that secured, we were going to go out and view the home and assess that situation as well.
And at this time, do you believe that there's been enough progress to continue towards the goal of reunification?
I would say yes, to continue for reunification. I would like to kind of see with the psychologicals in the process of being the scheduling, they're looking at early February potentially for their assessments to be completed. Just waiting on that confirmation. So I'd like to see what the psychologicals have to say as far as, kind of what the assessors sees as the needs and how we can better help this family and make sure that reunification can occur.
Is there anything else you'd like to update the court on?
At this time, I think that's everything.
Thank you. With that, Your Honor, I have no further questions of Ms. Young and move to admit the court report and the case service plans.
Thank you, they are received. What is Mr. Hubble on disability for?
I don't recall exactly. I think he could probably attest to that. I know he's got, some, he had an IEP when he was growing up, and I don't know if it's pertaining to that specifically or if there was a physical thing. I guess it's one thing we haven't really discussed, so I apologize. I don't have the answer to that.
Okay, can you look into that during the next report period?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Questions for this witness, Ms. Dumont?
Yes, Ms. Young, you indicated the parenting time went well and you with Ms. Vance and the children.
Yes, overall it went fairly well. Like I said, there was just a lot of emotions towards the end of it, and it was hard for everybody.
Do you think the kids were excited to see their mom?
Yes.
Okay. And your recommendation is keeping the goal at reunification?
At this time, yes. We're looking continue that goal.
But I think this case has been pending over 6 months, and I think Ms. Vance at this point has only had one Zoom parenting time for 30 minutes. Is that right?
Well, it was closer to 40 because we get like the 30-minute time slot plus the additional 10. That kind of it's like a buffer to kind of like end that time frame. I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's like whatever package it is for the free Zoom link. And I do know moving forward, Ms. Edwards has, she had purchased the Zoom package, so she has like unlimited time frame of how long she can use the Zoom. So moving forward, they're looking at doing separate visits and potentially expanding those beyond like the hour time frame and so forth.
And do you know how frequent Ms. Vance can expect to see the children with an extended time frame?
I would have to consult with supervision as far as, that, and then also with the therapist on what their recommendations are. Like I said, we are scheduled to meet on the 5th to kind of go over how the kids are doing in therapy services, kind of consult with the parents, and then have a better idea of kind of what their recommendations are moving forward from there.
What do you think the issue is with, a mother and her children and their bond by not seeing them or having any communication for over 6 months?
It would be very difficult, but I know with the circumstances and her situation and being married to the alleged perpetrator, I think makes things very complicated. So that's why we really need to kind of assess and discuss with her kind of what her thought is on moving forward, what her relationship is going to look like with Mr. Vance, because if she's going to continue that relationship, that could very well affect her relationship with her children and keeping them safe.
And have you had that conversation with her with regards to what her intentions are?
We have previously kind of discussed a little bit with that, but we would like to discuss that further. I'm working on trying to get another family team meeting set up essentially for this week to try to figure out, kind of what is that going to look like? Because we are at that point, like we really need to kind of decide, are you going to be staying with him? Are you going to be leaving him? Kind of what does that relationship look like? Because these are your kids. We need to take this seriously. Your kids have had a lot of trauma. There's been a lot of emotionals, a lot of behavioral things going on, and this relationship affects that.
So you indicated we could expect probably a family team meeting this week.
Yes, I'm working on trying to get all of that set up. It's been a very busy couple of weeks trying to get some things done on several cases, so I apologize. There's been a lot going on.
And is there any portion of the case service plan that Ms. Vance has not completed that she's able to complete on her own without a referral?
I think at this time, just continuing with therapy services, her medication reviews. I know she's expressed that she's been doing those. I'm just, like I said, I'm just waiting on that referral or the date for the psychological from the psychologist. So as soon as I have that, then she can get that completed, and then whatever recommendations from there, we can get referred on our own, on our end. But I think at this time, just really kind of taking into consideration what is her housing and situation going to look like, and she needs to make that decision on her own because that can only come from her.
And you did a home study with regards to her home and found that it was an appropriate place for the children.
I didn't go into the bedrooms, but I did see the majority of the home. I would need to go back on and reassess things, just kind of see what does the room setup look like, and kind of discuss with her, like I said, moving forward what that situation is going to look like. And again, this is one of Mr. Vance's rental properties as well. So there are cameras on the property. There's kind of a lot going on. I know Mr. Hubble helps to take care of the animals that are at the home. Ms. Vance frequents Indiana majority of the time because of the work, her relationship with her husband. So she's not necessarily in Michigan very often. So, we really kind of need to take a look at what are her needs and her barriers moving forward, because, she's got some decisions to make, and it could greatly impact her children.
But other than that, the portion of the case service plan she can complete, she's done everything.
She's either done everything or in the process of completing. Because like I said, she's in therapy services. Yeah. She's doing her medication therapy for her mental health. Those are some of the main components that she needs to do on her own that she's already started. So just maintaining that, and then once the other pieces are done, then we can move forward with the next part.
And did you get documentation of her parenting classes as well as she completed?
Yes, and that's already been submitted previously.
Okay. And then I know she's continuously had issues getting medical information, at least on CH with regards to continuous care that she's having. How is she supposed to go about getting that information? I know that she's not been able to access that via
portal, which is online.
Okay, I will get all of that printed off. Part of the issue was I have to redact the placement's information off of it because it has the address and everything on there. So I have to be able to go print all of that, redact that, make copies and get that sent over to her. I just have to have the time to be able to do it. Our office is under renovation right now, so we're very limited on space to go in there and sit down and work on some of that. And I've had a lot of emergencies going on with other cases. So, but I will get that. I'll make that a priority towards the end of this week to try to get all of that sent out to her, and to Mr. Hubble, because I know he needs that as well. So I will try and get all of that documentation out to them.
Thank you.
Mr. McFarland?
Didn't catch some dates. When was it that you met with Miss Linda Edwards for my client's parenting time?
I did a referral early last week, and I consulted with her towards the end of the week, confirming that moving forward, she was going to be setting up those times for the parenting times each week.
So has my client had a visit yet?
We did one last week where my supervisor and I supervised it. Ms. Edwards is going to be reaching out this week to set up that time for this week's parenting time.
So did you make a report regarding the visit?
As far as
A written report, how it went?
No, I just provided my verbal report.
Well, why don't you give us a verbal report of how it went with my client?
I did a few minutes ago.
Oh, just, okay, so there was no issues then?
There was no issues. No, I said it went overall really well. They were engaging well during the parenting time, and there was no concerns. There was just a lot of emotions with
Sure.
not seeing each
So
other.
let's say the psychologist says, okay, for one-on-one visits. What arrangements are you currently making so we don't have to wait another 6 months for dad to visit kids up in the UP?
Oh, that would be something that we would need to figure out. Either he would go up there or they would meet part way. Placement, we would be providing gas assistance to help with some of those things, but we would have to find a mutual place to meet to do those visits.
I guess my question is it true that you've not even started looking into that yet?
At this point, we didn't have visitation until just recently. So, and that was ordered to be supervised by virtually.
Well,
So
I know
at this point, no, we have not explored that necessarily. There has been some talk with the relative that in the event when that does take place, kind of what that would look like, timeframes, that kind of thing. But a lot of it would have to happen maybe on the weekend. We're not necessarily available to conduct those over the weekend. So we'd have to reach out to another provider to kind of assist with some of those supervised visits.
I'm hearing your speculation of what I'm getting at. It's been 6 months and it wasn't until the court ordered my client at parenting time, not your agency agreeing that it happened. So we're wondering, I understand you're telling us what has to be done, but when is somebody actually going to reach out and come up with a plan? Is that going to be perhaps at the family team meeting this week that we can look into that?
We're going to explore some of that more this week. I mean, I know we've had brief conversations previously about, when visits do happen, they'd be willing to go up there, or placement could come down here. So there has been a little bit of talk on it, not a full set plan of what that would look like, because at that time, visits were suspended. It wasn't until 2 weeks ago that we were able to do a supervised visit virtually.
So if, let's say, we don't have a scheduled date for the psychological evaluation for my client, correct?
As of yet, not the exact date. I was just told early February that there were 2 openings. I just didn't get the exact date. Yeah, they were waiting for the referral to be sent over. We got that signed sent over, and I'm just waiting on that date.
If that doesn't happen and it's pushed out to March or something like that, and my client's supervised visits through Linda Edwards are going fine, would you consider expanding it to a personal visit?
Yes, we would explore that.
When did the CTAC contact? I know we were here on the 14th of January. When was the CTAC contact made?
I had been working on that for several months. It kept getting kicked back by the behavioral analyst. She had to authorize in our system the okay and approval to send it out to Easter Seals. So this has been an ongoing process. I've been trying to upload, re-upload. Apparently things were not uploaded where she wanted it. they were in document section. We have, our system is very complicated and there are numerous document sections to upload things. And policy and the CI did not elaborate exactly where it needed to be. So I was able to figure that out, got everything sent over. It was denied. I had to redo the process, resubmit it. So now I'm waiting to hear if it was finally approved. And then once it's approved, then they will assign
Let me
the date
just,
of when the CTAC will happen.
maybe let me rephrase, after the 14th, when we were here last time, when was it that you worked on CTAC, was it?
I've been doing it continuously.
Okay.
There was been several days I've been working on those.
Okay.
That referral and trying to get it re-uploaded.
I'm having laptop issues, so I'm going from my memory here on my next question. Maybe my memory's not working so good without my laptop here. Over to Dosby, one moment. I'm gonna rest, Your Honor, but if I recall it, if I might have the opportunity to call since I'm having issues with my laptop this morning.
You're on. Questions, Ms. Underwood?
I don't have any additional questions, thank you.
Any redirect, Ms. Thomas?
No, Your Honor.
Any other questions from you, Ms. Dumont?
No, Your
Thank you for your testimony. May I return your seat, please? All right, anyone else you'd like us to hear from, Ms. Thomas?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Dumont?
Your Honor, I believe Ms. Nance, at the last hearing was called as a witness. So I do believe she, that was before we had some technical difficulties. So I do believe she's prepared to testify.
All right, Ms. Jessica Vance, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Would you like to tell the court anything with regards to your case service plan or how you believe the case has been going?
I've done basically everything that is on my case service plan other than the psych eval.
What does that include? What have you done?
I've done my parenting classes. I've done therapy. I'm still in therapy once a month. I do my medication review once a month.
How was your parenting time that you had last week?
It was good other than the placement in Monroe. You could barely hear my daughter because they had a bunch of background noise and the foster parents kept talking nonstop.
Okay, so you'd prefer to have more one-on-one contact without people in the background?
Yes.
Okay. Did you send gifts and things to the children for Christmas?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Are you having issues getting information that you need with regards to the children and their medical appointments and schooling appointments?
Yes, with my daughter I am.
Can
I'm
you
not
elaborate?
able to call the doctor to get any kind of information. I'm not able to call the school to get any information, even on her grades. Where with the boys, I'm able to.
Okay, and have you talked with Ms. Young with regards to that?
Yes, I have. She was supposed to be working on it.
Okay. And have you had a family team meeting?
Since this case started, I've had two.
Okay.
One in July and then one in October when my oldest son got pulled from his dad, placed with my sister.
Okay, so are you requesting that this week we have another family team meeting?
Yes.
Okay. And did you hear Ms. Young speaking with regards to your plans with Mr. Vance and the children based on the allegations?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to elaborate on what your plan is?
My kids will not be around him. There will be no contact with him, with my kids.
Okay. And is it your goal to have continued parenting time and reunification with your children?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like the court to know?
No.
Okay, questions, Ms. Thomas, let's start with you.
Thank you, Honor. Ms. Vance, I know that you just stated that Mr. Vance would not be around your children, but you did not clarify, is it your intent to pursue divorce or anything like that?
Right now, I can't afford a divorce.
Okay. Are you continuing to work with him and reside with him?
I don't reside with him. He lives in Indiana. I live in Michigan.
Okay. And are you working with him?
Off and on, yes.
Okay. And as relates to the parenting classes, were those online?
Yes.
Okay. And what did they address any parenting skills related to children with trauma?
Yes, they did.
Okay. And your therapy, what are the goals of your therapy?
Right now, we don't have goals set. Whenever I need to talk to him, I just call him and we talk. And
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay, questions, Ms. or Mr. McFarland?
No questions.
Ms. Underwood?
Yes, good morning, Ms. Vance. You currently say you live in Michigan. Is that in a house that's owned by Mr. Vance?
yes,
Would you be able to continue living in that home if you were to separate from Mr. Vance?
yes,
How would you safeguard your daughters from, or your daughter from your sons, since there are allegations of sexual abuse between the children?
I would make it where they couldn't go around each other by themselves and keep my cameras up in my house.
You indicate you're going to keep cameras in the house. Where would those cameras be located in the home?
Right now, they're in the kitchen, the living room, and the hallway. So I can see if the girls go in the boys' room or if the boys go in the girls' room. And nobody has access to them but me.
I don't have any further questions.
Okay. Any redirect?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. McFarland?
You're asking me if I have a witness?
Any witness testimony today?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Underwood, anyone you'd like us to hear from?
No, Your Honor.
Very well. Comments in closing, beginning with Ms. Thomas.
Thank you, Honor. At this time, we are asking the court to continue the out-of-home placement. The risk of harm to the children, predominantly being, I would say one, needing to repair the parent-child bond with ongoing parenting time. As Ms. Young stated, the court had ordered parenting time be suspended pending a recommendation from a therapist. And it has taken a significant amount of time for that to even take place. So I think that with the new orders stating that there can be parenting time as long as they're supervised, we have that referral in for Ms. Edwards, and we have a meeting with the children's therapist scheduled. I think that we can expand on that and start to redevelop that parent-child relationship in a safe manner. There are some concerns, I think, that without the psychological, whether the services in place are adequate to address the parents' needs, whether their therapy is sufficient, is particularly in understanding how their decisions may have impacted the children and led to the trauma in their lives. And then also we would just ask the court that we have another 90-day review, and it can be scheduled with a permanency planning hearing. I think at this time, Ms. Young's recommendation for continuing the goal to reunification is appropriate, given that some of these really meaningful services have yet to take place or be started. But it's promising because the parents are engaged, and that's really nice to have for this family. And Your Honor, I know that we were also, I believe, scheduled to address Mr. Smith, his release for one of the children. I do not see him or his attorney present, but I received a statement to accompany the release. So I just ask the court to consider that and provide guidance on next steps to ensure we have that release for that child.
Did you say that you received a copy of a statement to accompany release?
Yes, Your Honor.
I don't have that. I don't know if that's just not because it hasn't come from the clerk's office, but I was not aware that that was received. There's an unsigned one in the file.
Yes, Your Honor, I am looking, it was sent to Mr. Powell on Friday, January 17th, but it was not sent to the juvenile clerk email.
Okay, well, it'll need to be sent over to the clerk's office then. And I'm gonna just continue the status conference as it relates to Ms. Stang and Mr. Smith in the meantime to allow that to be circulated and reviewed. Again, I obviously was not the judge that took that release on record. So I'll have to think about whether or not I can accept that moving forward. My preference would be for Mr. Smith and Ms. Stang to appear and verify that, considering that that's what's supposed to happen under the statute as it relates to a release. So I'm just going to continue that until we can address that more specifically next time.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Dumont.
Judge, the goal is reunification. I think our biggest concern is it's been over 6 months with one supervised Zoom visit that I believe wasn't set up until you ordered it last, I think, a few weeks ago. But Ms. Vance will continue to do everything she needs to do with completing her case service plan so she can get her kids back. And I believe we can address a lot of the other issues we have, such as medical records and school records at the family team meeting, and hopefully that will be scheduled this week. So we would ask for another review period and the goal to continue to be reunification.
Mr. McFarland?
Well, I can't remember a case I've been on with been over 6 months when we've been unable to have a psychological visit. Parenting time had to be ordered by the court like this. I'm hoping we do have a family team meeting, and if I'm not available, that it still proceeds to my client this week so we can discuss the matter about if parenting times seem to progress in a good manner as they have been, how we are going to do the logistics of a visit with children in the UP. I was hoping that that would have been explored prior to now, at least worked out, so when the time came, we could just jump into that, but it hasn't been. I'm not sure whether my client's daughter, some of the issues presented are the separation anxiety. I don't know whether she's been picked on at school or bullied. We don't have a police report on that. We would like to, if the agency obtains any information further on this, that she share it with my client and with his attorney, since he's hearing slightly different than what was presented in the court today. But he's anxiously looking forward to doing everything that he can to progress for reunification, which is indeed the goal. Thank you.
Your Honor, I think it's important to reflect back on not only the fact that the 5 children that are subject to the jurisdiction of this court were exposed to a lot of trauma and a lot of intricate issues that are not in your normal NA case. These children have had extensive traumas and a lot of needs, a lot more needs than many children do. And the fact that 3 of them are now in the UP does add a layer of complexity to this matter. And it was appropriate to suspend parenting time for the length of time that it occurred, due to the fact that, again, the court was looking to allow the children time to have therapy and potentially make additional disclosures and really allow the children to acclimate to their situations and feel safe and feel like they had a home and feel like they had some stability in a place that there was constant chaos and trauma happening on a daily basis. While I understand that the parent-child bond is important, the needs of the children are equally, if not more important. And navigating this process has been very complex and intricate. I do believe that moving forward with supervised visits virtually is appropriate, pending obviously if there are recommendations made by the therapist that indicate otherwise, then we can also navigate that accordingly. But I do think that due to the complexity of this case, that there have been several barriers, and it's not only the lack of services, but again, it's the needs of each of the children and the fact that there are many of these children have complex needs, and that has taken some time to navigate and work through. But I do believe that virtual visits at this time are appropriate, and as long as they're monitored by L&L or somebody else that's qualified, that would be appropriate. I would ask that the children remain in their current placements as it's least restrictive and in their best interest. And I would also think it's appropriate at this time for reunification. However, if Ms. Vance continues to stay married to Mr. Vance, I will likely be recommending a different goal at the next hearing so that these children can continue healing and having permanency, stability, and consistency in their futures. Thank you.
Thank you. Court finds all interested parties were given notice for purposes of today's review and permanency planning hearing. The efforts towards the goal of reunification are being timely made by Ms. Young at the helm. We did begin this review in earlier in January, and adjourned with a litany of things for her to look into, and she has made good progress on those issues, including the upcoming meeting on February 5th. As she referenced earlier, in furtherance of the goal to get the therapeutic opinion as it relates to visitation, which was an appropriate order at the outset of the case. It does at times take significant gaps of time in order to get that into place. And at this time, we've had a lot of service providers change over in the last 6 months. And so I know that's been part of it. I would encourage you, Ms. Young, too, if your meeting on the 5th isn't as fruitful as you'd hope, considering the fact that, as you testified to, some of the therapeutic counselors for the children are not even seeing them right now, to look at the possible opportunity with Easter Seals to look at parenting time as a part of the evaluations, at least for those children that are set up with that. So to just be flexible on that point, and to obviously check in with Ms. Edwards as she goes along supervising those visits as well on a supervised virtual basis. Just to monitor how the children are doing, considering the amount of trauma, as Ms. Underwood reminded us on the record, that they've been through. This is an interesting case. It was obviously Mr. Randy Vance spearheading much of the trauma that the children suffered. And as I see it, Ms. Jessica Vance and Mr. Matthew Hubble clearly being towed in the wake of that. So the question becomes, what services are necessary for them in order to accomplish reunification with their children? How can we know that they will be able to keep their children safe, or that they've been able to understand why the things that happened to the children were so harmful, and how we can ask you to prevent that effectively in the future by demonstrating an understanding of those areas of damage, as well as how to prevent that moving forward. And I know that it's been a struggle also because we still don't have our psychological evaluations. Dr. Park is not one that I've seen do a lot of abuse and neglect evaluations, so that should be interesting. I do know that Dr. Haugen has some materials that have been used in the past, so it might be useful, Ms. Young, to simply grab onto some of those materials that we have had in the past that help parents understand trauma, abuse, and neglect, and give them ways to learn about that and to demonstrate progress on those areas, even if he's not spearheading the psychological evaluations themselves. So we're going to have to ask you to get flexible, get creative here in order to really find the services to help target what both of these parents need to understand and need to learn in order to keep their children safe. In addition to that, we're looking for both of them to demonstrate stability in housing and employment, in their own self-care around psychological needs, counseling, taking care of themselves is important in order to be able to take care of their children. At this time, I do not see progress has been made in those areas in order to allow me to return the children to their primary care. These, as Ms. Underwood expressed as well, are children with extensive needs. Many of these needs are as a result of the trauma that they've been through, diagnosis around behavioral struggles, focus struggles. The one that's accused of being the bully is actually also diagnosed with scoliosis. He is supposed to be wearing a special brace. There are just a lot of things happening. Every one of these children has been diagnosed with psychological challenges, and their medications and counseling services are pivotal to help support them in that. There's been a lot of upheaval. One of the children was with dad, and then dad couldn't handle it, and now he's with his brothers, and hopefully that's doing him some good there to stabilize him and to give him that support. But I also know, as we talked about, I was brought up during Ms. Jessica's testimony, that there has been trauma experienced at the hands of each other as it relates to sibling interactions. So it's a very complicated, difficult case. The suspension of parenting time is not as harmful as it could be in a case where the bond between a parent and a child is characterized by healthy and safe interactions, more so than the failure to protect and allowing not only victimization from Mr. Vance as a parent, but also victimization between the siblings. So I don't see that as necessarily being harmful, especially given that, as I've seen throughout other cases and has been supported by testimony about experts in other cases, sometimes kids just need a break in order to begin the healing journey. I am happy to hear that the first supervised virtual parenting time went well, and that seemed to be a support for the children. So we will leave that order in place, along with the particulars that I put in place around that last time, no talking about the case itself or other things that would compromise your opportunity to bond with your children. Just do what you did last time and ask them about themselves and enjoy the visit and use it as a way to support the kids and support yourselves. So as we look at the next review period, I again will adjourn the stats conference as it relates to Mr. Benjamin Smith. I'd like to see him verify those things on the record before I'm comfortable signing those, since the release itself was taken by Judge Costello. I'd be happy to review that record as well, but as far as the statement of release that was provided to the court, I think I need to at least have him verify under oath that that in fact was his signature. So that's being adjourned to our next hearing. I'll also set the next hearing as a permanency planning hearing. Ms. Vance needs to decide what she's going to do, where she's going to land, how Mr. Vance is going to be a part of that, considering the significant risk that he poses in his interactions with the children. And clearly the protective measures that she had in place before weren't working. And it doesn't sound like she's been able to understand or become creative enough to provide for effective measures against further harm. And we'll look for her to work on that in the next report period. So we'll have our next hearing, review permanency planning, as well as that status conference on April 21st at 10:30 in the morning. Again, that's April 21st, it's a Monday at 10:30 a.m. I'll have a copy of the order. We'll look for some of Ms. Young's work again in the next report period. And unless there's any questions, that's all for today.
Your Honor, I have Anderson Davis at 10:30 on the 21st.
Oh, you do?
I do too.
Okay, all right, so let's set this one then at 1:30. Did I double book that already?
That, I don't have any
1:30.
1:30, I just had the 10:30. Yeah.
Okay, all right, so we'll set this one then on April 21st at 1:30. Thank you. I'll have to make sure I update my calendar.